Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Chatting the Pictures. I am Cara Finnegan. I am a writer and a teacher and a historian of photography.
And I'm Michael Shaw, and I'm the publisher of Reading the Pictures.
There's so many things with pictures, we don't even know what we do.
Reading, chatting.
All the things. So we have some visual news this week, Michael, of all kinds: the celebrity, the political, the economic, the international.
Spanning the gamut.
Yes. What are those? The old worldwide of sports, spanning the globe. Yes.
Yeah. Agony of victory.
Yeah, something like that.
Victory of defeat.
I was just going to say both of those things sound exactly correct. All right, shall we get started?
Yep.
Okay, let me roll us into this week's first segment, which we call the news. How do news photos tell a story? And here is this week's first image.
Yeah, we were sort of frustrated trying to find what quote unquote a better photo than this for this story, and then more and more thought about it. This just seemed perfect. It was taken by, or distributed by an agency called Mega, and I think the photographer's name is Rajput, and again, don't have a lot of background on that, but the caption reads, "Felicity Huffman is seen leaving court." And it's from HollywoodLife.com, short and sweet on those captions there. And for anyone who hasn't been paying attention, seems like Huffman became the poster woman for this giant college entrance a scandal that broke this week. She was accused of conspiracy to commit mail fraud, and she paid $15,000 to this agency out in LA for a proctor to correct her daughter's SAT. So one little tidbit about Felicity Huffman, whereas everybody is talking about how she was on the Desperate Housewives, and maybe the photo makes her a truly desperate housewife in one sense, because I watched a lot of those programs from 2015 to 2017. She also starred in the ABC's anthology American Crime. So, truth is stranger than fiction, or it all's blurring together these days.
Yeah, where does the celebrity end and the news story begin, right?
Yeah, right from the White House down.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, your comment about trying to find the quote-unquote better photo is really apt, because, this is, in some ways, of course, this would be a paparazzi photo, right? Because, of course, when, celebrities are involved, people you usually see posing on the red carpet, to get them in that contrasting moment is kind of the paparazzi dream, and presumably pays lots of money to the photographers willing to stalk around in hallways and alleys and restaurants and whatnot. To me, what I think makes this a really interesting as a photo is the contrast of the three faces, so that you have especially the guy in the front who's in, I don't know exactly what law enforcement gear he's wearing. It's kind of difficult to see, but she's presumably leaving court. He's some kind of official, whether he's a bailiff or, I don't know what he is. But just the utter kind of disinterest on his face, contrasted with Felicity Huffman's, I think, deep interest in kind of knowing that she is being photographed or about to be photographed. To me, that's a really kind of interesting juxtaposition in the context of a story, right?
Yeah, because it looks like disappointment too. I mean, to me, this is like the viewer guidance grimace of the year.
This could be memeable, are you saying?
Yeah, definitely. In terms of just channeling, we're so disappointed in you, Felicity. And as the desperate mom. I love that wearing a bulletproof vest also. Yeah. I mean,
incoming. There's a couple things that are really interesting about that. I think one is there is a really interesting gender component that, although I don't know the numbers on men versus women who were charged, and clearly there were a lot of, I think, married couples, the media narrative has been on the moms. I think partly because of the celebrity factor, that's huge, right? But I think also partly because there's this assumption that, the moms are the ones that take care of things at home, and the moms are the ones that take care of things with the kids. And so you've got that juxtaposition too, that there's a kind of gender juxtaposition as well, that in some ways is playing out here. And I think it's been playing out in the media coverage overall.
And it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing in this photograph. I look at this and I'm like, yes, all the dudes are there on the right and occupying the center of this, and she's back there, makes her like even more of a perp, and like, all this loading for danger and flight risk and criminal. And where is Bill Macy? Where is Bill Macy? Where are you?
Yeah, exactly. And, and there's also just the doorway component, right? And if you've read any, as a university professor, I will admit, as someone who's worked at universities for a very long time, to be interested for that reason in the story as well. And if you read the stories about this case, the narrative was, well, the kids who get in legitimately get in through the front door, and then the people who donate a lot of money get in through the back door.
Beautiful.
And then this guy was offering a side door. And so to me, she's kind of coming in from that left side. Is this the side door? Is this the side door she planned? Probably not, right?
That's great.
So there's that kind of a component too that I think is pretty interesting.
And isn't it, I don't know anything about the courthouse, but it does look actually like this was the entrance. A lot of people got arraigned, in the last few days, and she was the only one who, really got caught visually. But, this does look like maybe the spot they would have ferreted her out. And that's why it makes the paparazzi aspect of it ironic, because this is just dead on a paparazzi photograph. But then it's completely a crossover also. So they nailed her.
Yeah. And again, like, I think if you look at one of the kind of paparazzi narratives is, photograph celebrity at the farmer's market or on the street with their kid. And it's the whole kind of celebrities are just like us, right? And this is the dark side of that, you might say, right? Yeah. Okay, well, shall we move on to a different kind of dark side, you might say. This week's segment, The Look, is where we ask, how are photos pushing the visual boundaries to tell a story about the news? And here is this week's dark photograph.
Yeah, great segue. The photo is taken by Carlos Eduardo Ramirez for Reuters. The caption reads, "A girl uses her cell phone at the window of her house during a blackout in San Cristobal, Venezuela, March 14, 2018. But because of the economic crisis, Venezuela has reduced electricity consumption to about 14,000 megawatts at peak hours, according to engineer and former electricity executive Miguel Lara. 2 years ago, state-run Capoelec put the figure at 16,000 megawatts. So, wow, I mean, right off the bat, the irony of sight and visibility and power, I mean, my goodness.
Yeah, and what's interesting is when I first looked at this photo, I didn't even see her.
Oh man!
Because I was working really hard to see into the picture, right? I knew it was a picture of the blackout, and then I was like, oh, look at that, right there she is. So
we do read left to right, also.
Yeah, and so to me that was really interesting because that pointed to, that pointed to the question of kind of where's the story, and in the darkness is the story about what's been happening in Venezuela. But what I also think is really interesting is that juxtaposition with the face looking into the phone. It's this kind of persistence, right? Like we are never in a situation where we can go without power, because power is communication and connection and information in a way that maybe was different before the era of the cell phone. And so that kind of need for light, literally, embodied by the young girl with her phone, it suggests that like, this can't go on. You've got to fix this.
Mm-hmm. There's actually traffic jams out front of the telecom agencies there because people are like bootlegging the signal. But this, I think that the photograph to me is really stunning for the amount of visual range and narrative. and we're seeing this more and more in news photographs. It's documentary, you have the dark landscape and the effort to find a signal. It's a portrait. It's generational. You've got the plight of youth and what the youth have to look forward to. Last week with that Arctic photo, you were talking about temporality and how, photographs capture moments in time. This is Venezuela is like a rolling disaster or the slow motion train wreck. This is mysterious. There's another window up there. What's in the dark in the immediate, area. And also, it's really weird is if you lighten the photograph, and you can do that just by clicking on it, and then you get, at least on my browser, and then you can kind of see this kind of inverse thing go on. The photo's full of power lines.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like the whole thing is, like this.
Yeah. If you look off to the left and then kind of moving diagonally into the background of the image. Yeah. You see that. And then the power, what looks like a light pole that's immediately, kind of looks like it's in front of her, but it's, to the back of the photo with a light
almost touching the
that's
cell
not
phone.
on.
Yeah.
What I was thinking too, and it's so interesting that you point out those features, Michael, because one of the things I was thinking was if that light was on, the light that appears attached to the pole, that looks like a glass fixture, if that light were on, we wouldn't have this photo. We wouldn't be able to see the girl and the phone in the same way. And so it's this interesting juxtaposition, right? Like if the lights were literally on, you would have no photo. This would just be like a girl hanging out a window, and it would probably be badly lit and hard to shoot.
Wow.
And, so there's that component too, which is right. Sometimes you need the darkness.
Wow.
But there's also something allegorical. You mentioned all these other kind of components. There's something allegorical too, in the sense that you have a single figure kind of alone against the dark. And, not only does that, I think, represent the generational or the youth question, what kind of a future do young people have, in a country where the grid has just been totally disrupted and, where everything is just completely up in the air. But it's also a kind of, that single person against, the machine, the darkness,
She's a protagonist.
Like what is that relationship? How do you have any kind of agency, in the world where literally the lights can go off at any moment, right?
Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't be the same photo too if it wasn't a youth,
I think,
and a girl maybe too. But
yeah, I think that actually is a really interesting point, because it points to, again, that generational, we like to, I think, us older folk, right? We like to say, oh, the kids and they're all stuck to their phones, but this is where we live. This is the world we live in now. And how are you literally going to power that?
Yes.
In all of these ways.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, she also is unsafe, right? If she doesn't have access probably to that phone in certain contexts. And so there's a lot of stuff happening there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shall we move on to our final photo?
Yes.
Of the week. Michael's just chomping at the bit on this one. This week's pick, and when we talk about this segment, what we're interested in is what makes a photo a good editorial choice. Sometimes that's news related, as this one is today as well. But certainly this strikes us as quite a pick.
Yeah, I've been tweeting this all morning. I don't have a title for it. We know who took it. Annie Leibovitz. For Vanity Fair came out this morning, or I guess it was last night, and it's I guess what you could say is this is Beto's announcement, and that's he's quirky, and they got the scoop. So it's a really. And there's about 7, 8 photographs in the article. And then there's a behind the scenes article, how the photographer did it, one of those. Yeah. Which is becoming a thing.
Especially for Annie Leibovitz,
Yeah. It's kind of, that's pretty standard for her at this point, especially Vanity Fair, just kind of, because she's the story as much as he's the story.
Yeah. To be photographed by Annie Leibovitz is to say something about your rising status, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
Totally like the rock star. So, I think there's so much to say about this. One thing is the basic stuff is just like, this is just branding to no end at this point. You know, it's the perfect merger of politics and advertising. If you thought Obama was the Truman Show, that's now like the standard. So, and you know, and also, by the way, even the anchor text here is a ripoff, like Sophie's Choice, Beto's Choice.
Yeah.
I did one tweet like, sorry, Bill Styron. But this appropriates the truck, the American West, the open plain and the natural world, America's romance with the open road, man's best friend, Levi's, Democratic blue. Just when so many Democrats were co-opting the color red, he kind of like flipped that back, you know, when he flipped something that was flipped. And then that back pockets gesture, come on, you know. And of course, you know, it's Leibovitz.
Yeah. And note the red, white, and blue, right? You've got the blue and white in the clouds, the fair and red, and
that's great.
You know, yeah. I mean, it's sort of like, it's kind of like shooting fish in a barrel with the symbolism. You know, I mean, the dog is a black lab, for God's sake, right? You know, like the doggiest dog you can have too.
Yeah, with a blue collar.
Yeah, and that was actually one of the first things I noticed. I thought, does that dog's collar match with the blue? But you know, one of the things I want to go out on a limb here and say that this photo is it's doing all of the branding things, but I think it's also placing him on the political spectrum because of the red. You know, arguably, you know, there's an argument to be made that he doesn't like to define himself in any one particular direction. There's an argument to be made that he is, in this group of candidates now, a kind of middle of the road guy, you know, and Leibovitz is photographing him, you know, more or less in the middle of the road.
Oh, absolutely. Very good. Slightly to the left, maybe, but absolutely. Absolutely.
And, you know, the red, white, and blue, right? So there's a kind of narrative about, you know, patriotism happening there. And, you know, since we're kind of talking about celebrity today, right? And to be photographed by Annie Leibovitz means you are a kind of up and coming celebrity and you're worthy of, you know, her camera's attention. I think it's really interesting also, in addition to this kind of middle of the road thing, his face, it's not the like glowing wattage of the Obama smile at all.
Yeah.
And it's also not quite the face of, you know, the kind of that sort of fortitude. There's a sort of vulnerable anxiety in his facial expression that I find pretty interesting. And, you know, I think Leibovitz caught something in that facial expression that, and in some ways it actually, this is weird, it actually echoes the dog's facial expression to a certain extent. There's a kind of anxiety there, and I don't mean an anxiety in a kind of like chewing up anxiety way, but I mean it in the sense of
on the edge of hangdog.
Kind of prepared wariness, a little bit of a hangdog face.
Like we're in deep shit here.
Which is a real contrast. It's a real contrast to the I want to be in it, I'm born to be in it quotation. Like, even though his body posture is very confident, and even though the text is very kind of like, I'm your man, right? Like very kind of aggressive. There's something else going on there that Leibovitz has captured that I just think is really interesting.
It's another reference, actually, now I'm thinking about it, is the bush clearing the brush.
Yes,
and we're also talking about situating this into, like, you know, southern Texas. But yes, it's very modern in terms of, like, you know, we're in trouble here. And so it's kind of, and you know, what it does, I think, is, especially with all those videos he took on the truck, you know, and situating himself close to the truck here too, is just like, it's very candid. It's, in a way, it's kind of like, it's canned but candid, which is like, you know, it's just you and me.
Yeah.
So it's a continuation of that vibe that he created, you know, with all of the, you know, you know, Instagram stories, you know, leading up to this is like phase 2.
Yeah.
And then also
that's a really interesting point.
And when you're talking about stage, you know, you're talking also about some stage direction with her. Obviously, she took a trillion shots, and like this was the facial expression that, to her and to the editors of Vanity Fair, felt like it had that kind of, you know, nuance and meaning. But then she also broke a little bit of news and kind of showed her hand in terms of the stage direction when she said, and this is in that backstory article. She said it read she was with him at the February 11th rally. So this is like almost 5 weeks ago, and shot the cover the next day. And she said to him, "Listen, if you're going to run," and this is the conversation she had when she was staying on the road with him. She said, "Listen, if you're going to run, wear the blue shirt. If you're not going to run, let's wear something else." And he said, "Let's put on the blue shirt."
Yeah.
So, when you talk about the heavy hand and how savvy someone like Leibovitz is, who's shot every world leader and conveyed every like critical moment, for her to basically like pick out his shirt.
Yeah, and she's composing that photo in her head. She's thinking about the shirt and the jeans and the dusty road and the blue sky and the fluffy clouds and the light and the time of day. I mean, that's what you do. Yeah.
The way the blue lines up is, you're right, and where he is situated in the road is really, you can say centrist, yes, left of center a little bit, and then also there's one other thing, by the way, with color, which I was thinking, like, all the women came in, and were just dominated everything, and then like lately, Bernie comes in, he's like a big personage. And then, it's sort of like women are pink and the boys are blue or something. It's like all the boys are. Oh, and Biden's about to come in. So it's like all the boys are getting in now.
Yeah. That's interesting to think about the timing and kind of who's decided what. And, the other thing I was thinking about, like, when you talked about like, this is just like, oh my God, he's just straight out of Central Casting. It's perfect. Right. And everything about this and the fact that it is Annie Leibovitz and it is the cover of Vanity Fair, all of those celebrity kinds of connections. It suggests a kind of level of, I guess, skillful professional packaging that, what little I've read about kind of where he is in terms of putting his team together, it may not, in fact, quite be there. So this may be like a really skillful kind of relatively slick rollout, but it's unclear, at least, as of this morning, really who's working for him and how things are going to come together. Is it, we have this really professional team and here's this package we're going to unveil to you, or is it, we've got this really great package to unveil to you and we're just like, swimming like ducks underneath the surface of the water.
But it's so contemporary. Paddling away.
He
was in the article, he's actually talking about how he admires Ocasio-Cortez. And he said, for the reason that she is just kind of a rookie and is making mistakes. And, so I think it's like the beauty of the rough edges. No one does it better than Trump, right? So anyway, I'm sure there's a trillion more things we could say, but I think we really like kind of squeezed all the color out of it.
I know, yeah, all the blue that we could possibly get out of this photo. Yeah, well, and there will be more. There will be more campaign photos, I'm sure, for us.
Hopefully, as good as this, yeah.
As we roll through things, right?
Great.
Like they're not gonna decrease in number.
No, that's for sure.
Anything else you want to say to wrap things up for us, Michael?
No, I think we're doing pretty good. I have a post on Venezuela and that incident on the bridge on the website. People might want to check out. But otherwise, no, just we had a kind of 2 slow weeks photographically, I'd say. But hopefully it's picking up.
Yeah. Spring is springing, maybe we can say.
Yeah. Oh,
all right.
Looking forward to next week.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.